That's what we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast with market conditions. So your point is,
Right. You don't control that.
yes, your point is that if you just pick a fund, the Qs, and you just essentially take a percentage out of your check or whatever, you put in a quarterly amount over time, the universal life insurance policy may not perform better, but your stomach is not going to feel that dip if the cliff drops for a little while.
Your volatility is going to be reduced, but people don't realize this. It's reduced on both the upside and the downside.
And so in the longer you stretch it out, it really equates to the same amount.
It's not super clear. The studies, it's not as clear which one's the right choice or which one's the winner. And again, markets may change. We've had some pretty good years in the stock market in general. That could change in the future, right? If you look at Japan, they had some really good times in the 1990s, and then they had some terrible times in the 2000s. It's like trying to predict the future. But the key point about why people like it is because people feel losses psychologically more than gains. So a lot of people are more than happy to make sure they reduce their loss than to maximize their gain.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Warren Buffett, man, guy's a genius. But he'll tell you that he's not. Over and over and over.
Yeah, he has his own whole hokey shtick too.
All right, Ethan, moving forward, is there anything else that you want to plug or talk about or offer to our listeners? We're going to put your website.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit more about life insurance. So I own a variable universal life, which has no floor and it has no cap. So I lost 18.6 in 2022 and I made 26 in 2023. So I don't have it indexed. There's no floor, there's no cap. So I've owned that for like 10 years. I've also owned whole life policies, which I like a lot. And that's what I typically sell because there's really no volatility on the downside at all. It's based on the performance of the life insurance company. Life insurance companies make money from having insurance, collecting money and then paying, taking premiums and then paying out claims, just like a car insurance company would do, right? So a lot of people don't die, a lot of people don't crash their cars, but people have insurance. So with a whole life policy, it's extremely leverageable. I can borrow up to 95% of my cash value, and that's what I use when I fund deals. So I keep very little money in my checking account. I keep it all in a line of credit against my life insurance policies. I don't have any real cash drag on my investments. And if a great crocodile loan comes through and they need $1 million, I can borrow it from my life insurance line, fund the $1 million, get it back, pay down my line. So that is the structure that I like the most for most of my clients and investors.
Got it. All right. So Ethan has a very diverse background, education-wise. He's very sophisticated in multiple different types of businesses, asset classes, stocks, insurance, real estate. And he is looking for borrowers that meet the criteria that he's posing: bridge funding, also known as gap funding, short-term loans. He's still looking at potentially being a sponsor and putting up his balance sheet to qualify for loans. And Ethan is hilarious and a wealth of knowledge. And now we're going to get into the last part here of the Skip the Line hacks. So the name of the podcast is Skip the Lines. As you know, I come from very little, so there's a lot of people that helped me in my career, as I'm sure the same for you. And we don't get here. I mean, you dove into the bigger pockets. You mentioned that for weeks, months. You still listen to those. So they put that information out. It's helped you in your career. So a couple of line skip hacks from the legendary Ethan Gao for maybe someone new getting in the industry, maybe even someone who aspires to be a hard money lender or a private money lender, someone that maybe wants to get in the life insurance game, wants to be a flipper, a sponsor, an operator. If you could pick out a couple things that would help, someone in this space, what would they be?
It would be the following. So in real estate in particular, when I started out, because I was very new, I had more of a scarcity mindset. So I was hesitant to network with other private lenders that did what I did in case they just did it slightly better than me and they were cheaper, and then they would go find all my borrowers and then I lose them all. The world typically doesn't, yes, that can happen, and yes, it does happen, but generally having a friendly relationship with people that do the same thing or similar thing as you end up learning more from them, and then you can teach them stuff too. It generally becomes a more symbiotic relationship where sometimes they're out of money, they might refer you a deal. Sometimes you're out of money, you refer them a deal, or sometimes they got burned by a borrower. They say, hey, don't ever talk to this person. They're a piece of crap. So generally, I would say networking with people that do similar things as you is generally a positive. You're going to get more out of it than what you might lose.
Awesome. I agree. And that is something you definitely have to walk through because, yeah, man, it's like this guy's going to take my people. Like that's a natural, I think, progression of the mind. And then, yeah, being able to sort of press against that, walk through it, and then you end up in the end becoming friends with these people and maybe partnering up on deals with these people. And yeah, they one phone call, hey dude, don't lend this guy any money. He cost me, $500,000. There you go. So I agree, man. I think that's awesome. And no one has ever brought that to light here. So what would be number 2? Ethan, you have another one?
Find mentors. So even if you don't become friends with people that do what you do, find somebody older that's lived through stuff, that's willing to help you and just give you good advice. Because especially what I found was, I'll just talk about me, for example. A lot of people come in and they have some success and then now they think they're hot shit and they do something slightly different or they add on a different business line and then they don't succeed. And then they're always like, well, why the hell did that happen? Which is, if you're baking a cake, sure, you know how to bake, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the best bread baker. There's enough nuance that it's different. And I feel like a lot of younger people or a lot of people that experience a ton of success, they're not humbled enough to realize that, and then they can make mistakes. But by having somebody older and wiser that you could just run things past, it's going to be like having an index universal life policy. They're probably going to tell you no a lot. So you might miss out on some great opportunities, but you're also going to miss out on a bunch of losses and stupid things that you may be interested in doing.
So we are now, I think, 100% that out of all the guests so far, I think this is number 8, Skip the Lines podcast, something like that. Everyone has said, find a mentor. So I think we are 100% right now for the Skip the Line hack to find a mentor. So I've said this many times, I'm going to say it again. I believe in mentors. I think they're super important. I think the type of mentor or who the mentor is obviously important as well. They are not all created equal. Every coach of every team, sports team that's won a championship, if you're like a sports guy, you'll know that every coach is not created equal. You need to find one that really cares, that's really vested, that can really, guide you, offer you valuable advice that's going to help you. As Ethan said, avoid some hits, right? Because, you may not take down a deal that seemed super juicy, but if you can avoid some big hits, it's going to keep you in the game longer and you're going to get more opportunities to get those big wins. So that's my input on that. And did you want to do one more or are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to stay as long as it's helpful.
Let's do one more, Ethan. I think, one more Skip the Line hack for someone, new and up and coming or someone even experienced.
I would say read a lot or pay attention to podcasts. I think somebody said it the best, which is reading about somebody that failed or a specific situation that resulted in failure. Like you basically get a shortcut on that entire person's life. So if he describes like a couple of deals they failed on and there's a common theme and then you could avoid that, you've literally taken 80 years of, or whatever, 60 years of wisdom and you figure it out in like 2 hours without having to be alive 60 years.
I love that.
So that's a shortcut.
I love that.
Reading about other people.
So using your own experience, your own failures, obviously avoiding those to repeating that same thing. But then if I have other people in my life that have walked through some things and they've had some challenges or some failures, if I can avoid those, now I'm compounding upon my own experiences and someone else in the industry or a different industry that, I aspire to be in.
Exactly.
I love that. All right. How can the people get a hold of you, Ethan? You're on LinkedIn. I'm going to put that in the description as well. You guys make sure you like and subscribe to the Skip the Lines podcast. I'm going to have more awesome guests on here like Ethan. We interviewed our friend Andy Rosenberg last week. I'm going to put Ethan's website in the subscription or in the description. I'm going to put his LinkedIn profile in the description. Are you on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, Ethan?
I'm on Facebook, but Facebook is mostly my wife tagging me on a bunch of kid photos. I don't use it very much. I find LinkedIn to be more relevant for me.
Okay.
And then I think somebody on my staff manages our Instagram and our Twitter, but I think all it does is kind of mirrors like the stuff I post on LinkedIn. Because that's really the only thing that I actively do myself. The rest of the stuff somebody on my team does. Email is the best way of getting a hold of me. My email is Ethan, ETHAN, @GAO, familyoffice.com.
All right. And I will put Ethan's email, his LinkedIn, and his website in the description. So reach out to Ethan if any of these awesome products that he has or just the wealth of knowledge that he possesses strikes you to move. I highly recommend him. He's a legend. He knows everyone in the space and is very, very experienced and, a genius. So it doesn't hurt to have geniuses in your corner.